Dragon Ball FighterZ was released earlier this year to a lot of positive reception, including from myself. It originally came to the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, but 9 months later, it finally makes its way over to the Nintendo Switch. This version of the game brings the entire console experience on the go with some technical drawbacks to maintain that solid performance, for the most part. Dragon Ball FighterZ's story is as deep as most TV animated adapted video game stories. It's not very deep. In reality, it reads a lot more like an odd fanfiction. You play as the soul of a human that gets transferred into the body of Goku, so you're essentially playing as yourself, but as Goku. What a terrible time for Goku to check out too, because Earth is in the middle of being invaded by evil clones of Earth's mightiest heroes. No, not the Avengers, but the Z-Warriors. Everyone that would be around normally to help fight off these enemies have been kidnapped, so now it's just up to you, a stranger in Goku's body, to save the day. Like I said, it sounds very much like a fanfiction you'd find online, I mean, not that I would know. Anyway, the story mode is broken up into 3 arcs consisting of the Super Warriors arc, the Super Villain arc, and the Android 21 arc. The 3 arcs come together to tell a single story that would take you anywhere between 9 to 12 hours. Like most fighting games, it's told through the cutscenes that lead into fights. Those cutscenes usually consisted of witty self-referencing banter between pairs of characters. There's an abundance of fan service here for people that have been longtime fans of the anime, and it's actually pretty funny to see Krillin finally get called out for not having a nose. Furthermore, the way the cutscenes are designed make them look like they were ripped right out of the anime to anyone just passing by and watching you play. They still could have been executed a little bit better though. You see, the cutscenes don't have an auto-continue option, so you have to press the A button at the end of every single one of them. It can make them kinda drag. I mean, they'll literally just stay frozen there if you don't press anything. I found myself trying to time the A button perfectly to keep cutscenes flowing, only to accidentally skip a cutscene entirely. I at least appreciate the arc system works in just retell the story from the anime in video game form. It's a unique story that, though it may not have been the most riveting story, at least does some tongue-in-cheek towards fans of the series that I'm sure they'll appreciate. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a contender for one of the most approachable fighting games out there. Gamers new to the genre or those who are just intimidated by more technical fighters can easily adopt this one. It takes on the 3v3 fighting style that the Marvel vs. Capcom series is known for. As for controls, it's a 4-button type system consisting of light, medium, heavy, and special attacks. It's easy to get used to, with the super attacks really only taking a quarter circle and a button combination. It feels very similar to Arc System Works' previous games like Persona 4 Arena and Persona Ultimax. The simple control system will let newcomers to the genre get a hang of things, while veteran players can use the simple system to their advantage for combo-heavy fun. Now, being a fighting game, as you'd guess, the gameplay is all fighting. The 12-hour story mode is presented in this board-like interface where each chapter grants you a space to move. Analyzing the board, you move around to fight enemies, recruit allies, and take on big boss fights. It can at times feel almost like an RPG in the sense that you can swap out characters, add on buffs, and so on. It's certainly an interesting way to execute a story mode, but not one that felt better because of how it was executed. The arcade mode continues the unique trend by ditching the traditional fight this list of enemies scheme. Instead, you fight enemies by difficulty arches that deviate towards different paths depending on how well you do in matches. It makes the arcade mode feel like you're constantly being challenged, and that was pretty cool. If you want to just jump right into playing against people online or offline, you have the option to do both. The 24 character roster consists of fan favorites like Goku, Vegeta, and Majin Buu, but you'll also come across variations of some characters like a Super Saiyan Goku. I was a bit disappointed to see that this brand new $60 version of the game doesn't include any of the DLC characters already released. However, considering that the other versions of the game haven't really gotten that much cheaper on sale, I guess it just should be expected. Jumping into matches offline, I found the gameplay to be a perfect representation of the PS4 and Xbox versions I had played at the beginning of the year. Matches felt zippy, and playing on the Switch Pro controller, I felt I was easily executing the same techniques I was using before. The only oddity with playing on the Nintendo Switch version is playing in handheld mode. Playing with the Joy-Con controller, I found that my thumb would often hit the right analog stick trying to hit one of the face buttons for a combo. Luckily, the right analog stick doesn't really do anything by default, so it wasn't much of an issue, but something I had to get used to regardless. I personally would recommend playing with the Pro controller over the Joy-Con, but in a situation where you're playing the handheld mode, it'll just take some time to adjust. When playing online, I found the connections for matches to vary pretty often. Depending on who I was playing, I could at times feel like someone was playing right next to me. Other times I'd get weird lag gaps during supers or throughout the match. It's a peer-to-peer connection system, so it really just comes down to who has a good connection and who you're playing with. Now after playing for hours on end in the offline and online modes, you can redeem the coins you've collected and use them in the in-game loot box system. Now I'm sure that just puts a bad taste in your mouth saying loot box system, but luckily the items in these boxes are at least all cosmetic. I actually found the system to be pretty generous too, never really feeling like I was forced to keep on grinding to get a new chibi avatar for my online lobby. Overall, I found the Nintendo Switch version of the gameplay to feel right at home. Jumping into matches both offline and online, when the connection was good at least, felt great. The fast pace of the matches and the on-the-go nature of the Switch perfectly went together. Catching matches in the back of an Uber or just breaking out the Switch at a party for some 1v1s all felt fantastic. Now on to answering some of the biggest questions people probably have about this Nintendo Switch port. Performance for Dragonball FighterZ on the Switch targets 60 frames per second, but it does dip into the mid and low 50s at times. It becomes most noticeable when supers are on screen that cause an animation transition. I still found the game to be perfectly playable, but to some more hardcore enthusiasts out there looking for a stable performance, you may want to look elsewhere. As for resolution, Dragonball FighterZ runs at 720p in handheld mode and 1080p in dock mode. Sort of. You see, the game renders in objects at different resolution. So in dock mode, all cutscenes run at 1080p, and the same goes with the UI elements. However, things like character models during actual gameplay will render in at lower resolutions. This is all done to help maintain the 60 frames per second target. It's a downgrade from other console versions for sure, but when I was just fighting people and all the action, I was hard pressed to really care. It still ultimately looks and feels like an anime just came to life right in your hands, even at the lower resolutions. Like the visuals, the music and audio in FighterZ feels like it was ripped right out of the anime. The mix of screams, Kai Blast, and music all come together to perfectly recreate those late nights of me watching Toonami as a kid. You also have the option to switch between English and Japanese dub to fit your preference, with a lot of the original cast being back. However, if you do decide to play in English, I noticed that there was a bit of a lip sync delay at times. It also plays in part to how the cutscenes can just sort of hang there if you don't press the A button to continue on to the next scene. Dragonball FighterZ on Nintendo Switch continues to be the fun game I originally played earlier this year. As with most AAA ports on the Switch, of course it's not as nice looking as other versions of the game. However, the gameplay still feels like it was translated well enough to the platform to make it feel like a viable option to play, whether I was at home or on the go. The Joy-Cons may take a bit to get used to if you're primarily playing this in handheld mode, and the framerate dips may turn off the fighting game perfectionists out there. With that said, if your intent is just having another way to play this game on the go, or jump into it for the first time if you only have a Switch, then I think Dragonball FighterZ is a pretty good port on the Nintendo Switch. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, then be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your friends to help more people find out about my videos, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much for watching, hope you guys have a great day, and keep on gaming.